Yeah, let's get to one more here. I know you have a play on it. Big one for BYU and Arizona for that matter. Arizona has Texas Tech, a rematch with the Red Raiders coming up on deck. So potential look-ahead spot for Arizona on the road at BYU. Slightly bigger favorite. I have a slight edge to BYU per my numbers. I don't know if I'll play it just yet. I kind of want to see how the market fluctuates for this game. But Arizona, probably not a team that's going to take advantage of BYU's turnover issues. BYU, probably a perfect instance of the situation we just talked about. Home tax, UCF getting bet up over the weekend. BYU defies that, wins the game outright with, I think, UCF closing as a 2.5, 3-point home dog. Can Arizona guard a very intangibly sound BYU motion offense when Yegor Demon isn't turning the ball over? He is one of the hardest guards in college basketball, the freshman, because he's a point forward, 6'9", and has excellent vision. So couple that with altitude, I would probably have an edge to BYU, but where are you looking for this game, Justin?
BYU. We love BYU, and we're a little low on Arizona. Ken Pom ranks these teams 15 and 30 or so. We also rank them 15 and 30 or so, but a little flippy-floppy. We have BYU as the top 15 team, Arizona as the top 30 team, and again, that's a pretty decent switch. You're talking about, a good 2 points per 100 possession from either team. So you'll get right around what I would need for a game, which is about a 3-point edge from that, right? Because you don't get 100 possessions, you get about 70, 75. So you're going to get about that 3-point edge. So I will be on BYU. I played, I believe, at -115 was the price I got down at FanDuel on the open. And again, I just think right now, especially in conference play, they are, they're shooting well from deep. They're getting good looks at the rim. And it's essentially just not going as well as you would expect. The loss to Utah expected to be a massive win, so maybe that was just a little bit of the local rivalry not going great. They were 0 of 8 on mid-range jumpers, so assuming that those were those last-ditch shots, at least like probably 2/3 of them were like looks at the end of the clock where they needed the big bucket to stay in the game. They didn't. It gets a little out of hand. It looks kind of bad that they had that string. That was kind of finishing that string there at the beginning of January where they looked pretty weak. They lost to Houston, which is understandable on the road. They lost to Texas Tech at home. Expected to be a shot quality win. They lost by 5. That one was, I think, fueled a little bit by some tough shooting on threes as well, and they take a lot of them. So you're going to live and die with that variance, right? And then TCU beats them. 4-point game on the road. Again, I'm not really too upset about that. Big 12, a gauntlet of a few days. That was 4 days after the Texas Tech game. And then they were flying back home for an Oklahoma State game that they did win. And then finally Utah, but now they've rattled off 4 wins. Colorado, Cincinnati, Baylor, UCF. The last 2 looking much bigger. I do think this is a spot where you get in on them with the Arizona game. They probably get in on them one more time with the Cincinnati game on the road. I'm so anti-Cincinnati. And then you fade them, West Virginia and Kansas State. I think they will likely lose both those 2. So 3 more wins coming up for BYU. 2 more wins for BYU here, Arizona, Cincinnati. And then back-to-back losses, West Virginia, Kansas State. Or at least not going to cover Kansas State. They'll probably beat Kansas State. But they might not. They probably won't cover. So that's my prediction. They might lose outright, actually. Jerome Tang went into the trap, took over the trap. With Iowa State. So, look, Big 12 is a gauntlet. You never know what's going to happen, and I do think BYU is a team to buy. They're essentially Alabama light in the mountains that no one's talking about.
Yeah. No, and they've transformed from last year. Obviously, Mark Pope no longer there going to Kentucky, yet they're still a tournament team to this point.
A lot of shooting and getting those rebounds, efficient in transition, don't really allow you to get to the rim. And that's what you want. It's a good defense. And a good offense. So I think a good time to continue to invest. They're showing you why you should have been betting on them through the hard streak. And I think the line's probably off. So good luck. I'll be on them.
One last thing for me to throw into this handicap for the game, and I'm trying to see because I don't think you mentioned it. I also don't think FanDuel has a line for this game yet. Yeah. Still nothing for – oh, they do. BYU -1.5 minus 122 on the money line, so small favorite. I make them around minus 2.5, so I'm with you. One last thing that I think shot quality needs to start baking in is Caleb Love variance. We need a CLV.
I can tell you his. Yeah, Caleb.
You like that? You like
Yeah,
that?
I
A little
like
CLV?
that. A little CLV.
Not closing live value. Over his last 2 games, Caleb Love is shooting 40% from 3. That's not going to last, especially on the road in altitude, right?
I doubt it. He's probably one of the most fickle players there is. We are not the biggest fans over here at Shot Quality. He's hot, so expected to have 21 points at ASU, had 27. Expected to have 20 points against OSU, had 27. And then he's a little bit more pedestrian against what I would call good teams, right? So in the last 10 games, here's his hot games: TCU, UCF, OSU, ASU. Arguably the 4 of the weakest teams in the conference. Cold games: Cincinnati. So okay, maybe that's another weak team, but Baylor and Texas Tech. He just doesn't look good. A middle of the road game against West Virginia. I'm not really sold. I think, expected to see like 5-10% less in terms of how well he was shooting in some of these recent games. I think you want to go against him. He's been hot. Doesn't usually last for him. Like it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his last 8 games have been distinctly hot. So I think it's probably a good time to sell on him. He started the year cold. This is going to be a tough test. He's the type of player who I think, in terms of what he can do, the steals are great. He has the shooting prowess. Like, you can tell a lot from a player by how well they shoot free throws. Like, he should be a good shooter, but the rim efficiency isn't there.
The shot selection at times
right,
is
it's the shot selection. So essentially he just takes stupid threes a lot, and he's really inefficient off ball. So like he needs to just sort of figure that out and really just, I think, wisen up, because he has the shooting talent, but the shot making, you can't even see through it because of the way he takes the shots. So it's there, but I mean, barely. He's got to really figure it out. I don't think there's that much of like a future. He looks like an overseas baller. He's not NBA ready.
Wow. Already quoting his long-term prospects here. I love it. I'm with you, though. I'm with you. I have no reason.
Shot making rate is 16th percentile. Like,
yeah, no,
I understand Pac-12 Player of the Year in his first season. I know, but like, there's always been a little bit of this type of concern where
a lot of this.
Yeah. And the inefficiency attacking the rim too. He's not like taking smart drives. It's just like, and that could all be corrected, and maybe he proves me wrong. Maybe he hangs up on his bulletin board. Please, man. I hope that someone uses my take to make themselves a better basketball player. That would be the biggest crowning achievement of my life. But yeah, no, please. I think I'm just calling it how I see it. The shot making rank is bad. The shot selection rank is 25th percentile. The shot making rank is 18th percentile. And that's 324 possessions this year. I mean, sure, you go back and you look at last year, it's a little bit different. And I think, maybe you expect him to get back to that. He was at 80th percentile shot making last year, 61st percentile SQPPP. So I don't really know what changed. I think it's a lot more to do with just like, I think the shots he's taking from 3. So I don't know, but draft stock doesn't look nearly as good as it did last time around.
Yeah, I mean, even as of 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when UNC made it to the Final Four and made it to the national championship, with him being a big part of it. I mean, not to continue this conversation for that much longer, but you go back to last year, they had Boswell, who's not an electric scorer, but they had Larson, so less was on his shoulders last year. Maybe that has something to do with it. Either way,
you have the ball in your hands as the clock winds down. It totally changes the way that your shots look. I understand that, and that is probably essentially what happens. And you see it with like guys like I hate to make an NBA reference on this show, but like a RJ Barrett going to Toronto or being in New York And this guy looked like he was supposed to be all that in a bag of chips, but now all of a sudden his SQ doesn't look good. It's because, he has the ball in his hand in the last second. He's chucking up mid-range shots, and that's what happens to Caleb Love. So, yeah, he's definitely a little bit of a victim of circumstance, but guess what? The players that go on to do incredible things still make something of that. You get your Jalen Brunsons of the pack. You get your Ja Morants of the pack that can not only perform in the mid-range, but also dish it out and shoot. So we'll see. I mean, there's plenty of time for him to prove us all wrong. I don't think they're necessarily out of contention right now. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting end to the season here. This is a big game. You want to shut me up? It's a big game.
No, it's a huge game. I actually wanted to pull this up just to see before we wrap it, and we have gone a long time here on Caleb Love before we wrap up the show.
Yeah.
But on a points per position, this is wild. Okay, this is wild. Arizona would not be where it is without Caleb Love. I think that goes without saying, just because they need some semblance of a guy who can create his own shot, right? I think we could both agree on that point. But Arizona is averaging 122.8 points per 100 possessions with Caleb Love on the floor. Without him, 125.1. Kind of says it all, right?
Again, yeah, that's what's happening this year. Good. Look, I'm glad it lines up with what the shot quality's seeing, because it just, again, maybe he's just not having a good year. Maybe he flips it around. He's shown he can be that guy who can hit the shots that only 20 out of every 100 players walking around in Division I basketball can hit on average. That he does have an extra standard deviation gear that he can shift into, but it's just not here right now. And again, Arizona's going dancing. They're going to be there.
That was my point too.
Right, they're going to be. So maybe he just needs to lock in come March. Maybe he's a big game guy. I mean, we've seen some of the crazy shots. We know he has the talent. Look, it's going to be fun. So,
if you take anything away from this podcast, CLV, not closing line value, is a very real thing. It is. What's the Anchorman line? It's something and it's real. Or what movie? You know what I'm talking about? Oh boy, that's a rough end to the show on my.
It is a rough end to the show, Eli. You hit me put me on the spotlight for.
I'll take it out.
No, it's all right.
Caleb Love and I will both take L's here.